Ambassador Vexthal's 3 hands shake as the shuttle gets closer to Earth Station Alpha. The emergency datapad feels heavy in their grip. This isn't just any ordinary diplomatic mission. This is survival training. The manual's cover looks innocent enough. Just simple text reading human interaction safety guidelines. But inside, page after page tells stories that make even battle-hardened warriors nervous. Vexthal has been a diplomat for 30 cycles, meeting species from gas giants to crystal worlds. None of them needed a safety manual quite like this. 1. "Look at this," whispers Crixnar, their tentacles curling with anxiety. They point to rule number 1 with a shaking appendage. Never surprise a human from behind. The story underneath makes Vexthal's stomach turn. Ambassador Zelek from the Peaceful Traders Union had simply wanted to greet Kim Taeho, a human trade negotiator known for his calm demeanor. Zelek approached from behind and gave what their species considers a friendly shoulder tap. 3 seconds later, Zelek was flying through the air and crashed into a stack of cargo containers 20 feet away. Kim Taeho had apologized immediately, helping Zelek up and checking for injuries. He seemed genuinely sorry and confused about his own reaction. "I don't know why I did that," Kim had said. "It just happened." The medical report showed that Kim's body had moved before his brain even processed what was happening. Vexthal flips to the next page. Rule 2 reads, "Do not mention eating habits near humans." The attached incident report makes their blood run cold. A Vagonian ambassador had innocently asked human Captain Park Ji-won what her favorite meal was. When Park mentioned beef, the Vagonian cheerfully responded that their species also enjoyed eating intelligent creatures from their homeworld. The temperature in the room had dropped instantly. Every human present had gone completely still. Their eyes had changed, becoming sharp and focused like predators. Park Ji-won's hand had moved to her belt where she kept what humans call tools, but everyone else recognizes as weapons. The Vagonian had spent the next hour explaining that they only ate non-sentient animals, while surrounded by humans who looked ready to tear them apart. "This can't be real," mutters Crixtal, a representative from the Harmony Collective. "Their peaceful species has never encountered anything like this. How did these humans become the dominant species on their planet?" Vexthal keeps reading. Rule 3 warns about sudden movements. Apparently, any quick motion near a human triggers what their scientists call a threat response. A crystalline dignitary had simply reached quickly for a data tablet during negotiations with human official Yoon Soo-jin. Yoon had immediately grabbed the alien's arm with crushing force and twisted it behind their back before realizing what she had done. The most disturbing part wasn't the reaction itself. It was how the humans always seemed surprised by their own behavior. They would apologize and appear genuinely confused about why they had responded so violently to harmless actions. The shuttle's communication system crackles to life. "Approaching vessels, this is Earth Station Alpha. Please reduce speed and prepare for docking procedures." The voice belongs to a human, calm and professional. Nothing in that tone suggests the terrifying reflexes described in the manual. Vexthal continues reading. Rule 4 forbids any mention of human weakness or fragility. A Garaxian warrior had commented that humans looked delicate compared to his own heavily armored species. The human in question, Choi Min-ho, had responded by challenging the 8-foot-tall warrior to a strength contest. Choi had won easily, leaving the Garaxian with a broken arm and a new understanding of human physical capabilities. Rule 5 warns against commenting on human family members or loved ones. Apparently, any perceived threat to a human's pack triggers an extreme protective response. Ambassador Thekral had jokingly mentioned that human children looked tasty, a compliment in their culture, meaning healthy and well-fed. The human parent, Kim Yoon-ji, had immediately attacked with such ferocity that station security needed stun weapons to separate them. The other passengers on the shuttle represent 12 different species, and each one looks increasingly worried as they read. The ethereal beings who exist partially in another dimension seem especially nervous. The silicon-based lifeforms are checking their armor plating. Even the hive mind collective appears agitated, their individual units buzzing with concern. "Here's the worst part," Krixnar says, pointing to a footnote. "These are just the incidents from the last month. The manual gets updated weekly." As Earth Station Alpha grows larger outside the viewport, Vexthol realizes they're not just meeting another species. They're entering the territory of the galaxy's most unpredictable predators. Creatures who smile while preparing for war, who apologize after winning fights, and who treat violence as casually as other species treat breathing. The docking clamps engage with a soft thud, and somewhere beyond the airlock, humans are waiting to meet them. Delegate Nextor had practiced the approach 100 times. Keep movements slow, arms visible, no sudden gestures. The manual was very clear about proper human interaction techniques. As the Altarian trade delegation floated across the docking bay toward Captain Lee Minjun's merchant vessel, Nextor felt confident they were doing everything right. The human captain stood waiting at his ship's entrance, a smile on his face that looked friendly enough. Lee Minjun had a reputation as one of the more reasonable human traders in this sector. His record showed successful deals with 17 different alien species. This should be simple. But the moment Nextor came within 10 feet, something changed. Lee's eyes sharpened, scanning the Altarian delegation with laser focus. His right hand drifted toward his belt where something metallic glinted. The human smile never wavered, but his body had shifted into what the manual called combat readiness posture. "Welcome aboard," Lee said, his voice warm and professional. "I understand you're interested in our agricultural exports." Nextor nodded carefully, maintaining the exact posture recommended in Section 12 of the manual. "Yes, Captain Lee. We represent the Altarian Collective's food distribution network. We've heard excellent reports about Earth's grain production. So far, so good." The human seemed relaxed, even friendly, but Nextor noticed that Lee's hand never moved away from his belt. Even during casual conversation, the human remained ready for instant action. The delegation followed Lee into the cargo hold, where the sweet scent of earth grains filled the air. Junior diplomat Kylith's antennae twitched with excitement. The Altarian species had highly developed senses of smell, and to them, Earth's food production created incredibly complex and appealing aromas. "This smells absolutely delicious," Kylith announced cheerfully. "The way you humans prepare your food makes it smell so appetizing. I bet it would taste amazing." The words left Kylith's mouth before Nextor could stop them. Every alarm bell in the delegation leader's mind started ringing. Rule 7 in the manual specifically warned against commenting on human food in terms of consumption. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Every human in the cargo hold went completely still, not just quiet, frozen like statues. Lee Minjun's friendly expression didn't change, but his eyes became cold and calculating. Two crew members who had been casually checking inventory suddenly straightened up, their hands moving to their tool belts. Park Da-un, the ship's engineer, had been welding something near the back wall. She slowly set down her torch and began backing toward what looked like an emergency communication panel. Her movements were careful and deliberate, like someone trying not to startle a dangerous animal. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Nextor could practically hear everyone's hearts beating. The humans weren't moving, but they were all watching the Altarian delegation with the kind of focus that predators use when deciding whether to attack. "What exactly do you mean by taste?" "Amazing," Lee asked quietly. His voice had changed completely. Gone was the friendly merchant. This was the voice of someone preparing for a fight. Nextor's mind raced through the manual's emergency procedures. Chapter 15 covered accidental threat implications. Step 1 was immediate clarification and de-escalation through gift offering. "Fruit crystals," Nextor shouted, perhaps a bit too loudly. The humans all tensed at the sudden noise. "We brought Altarian fruit crystals as a diplomatic gift. Our species only consumes crystalline plant matter. We have no interest in organic food consumption." Moving very slowly, Nextor reached into their diplomatic pouch and pulled out a container of beautiful glowing crystal fruits. The Altarian delicacy looked nothing like any Earth food, clearly alien and obviously not organic. "These are our traditional gifts for new trading partners," Nextor continued, holding the container at arm's length. Kyleth was simply admiring the complex aromas of your grain storage techniques. In our culture, appreciating food scents is a sign of respect for agricultural skill. The explanation seemed to work. Lee's posture relaxed slightly, though his hand still hovered near his belt. Park Dayun stopped backing toward the emergency panel but didn't move forward either. Fruit crystals, Lee repeated, examining the glowing container. And you don't eat organic matter. Never, Nextor confirmed. Our digestive systems can only process crystallized plant minerals. We couldn't eat organic food even if we wanted to. Slowly, very slowly, the humans began to relax. But the damage was done. For the rest of the meeting, every human on the ship remained alert and ready. They completed the trade negotiations successfully. But Nextor noticed that there were always at least 2 humans watching the Altarian delegation at any given moment. As they prepared to leave, Captain Lee shook hands with each delegation member, a human custom that the manual recommended accepting. But even during this friendly gesture, Nextor could feel the incredible strength in the human's grip and see the calculating intelligence behind his smile. Walking back to their own ship, the Altarian delegation moved in stunned silence. They had followed every protocol perfectly, yet had still almost triggered what the manual euphemistically called a defensive response scenario. The most disturbing realization was that these humans seemed genuinely nice. Captain Lee and his crew were polite, professional, and fair in their dealings. But underneath that civilized exterior, they were always ready for violence. Even during peaceful trade negotiations, they remained prepared to fight for their lives at a moment's notice. Choi Hye-jin had been enjoying the diplomatic reception until Warlord Grexmore approached her with what seemed like friendly interest. The 9-foot-tall warrior from the Titan Coalition towered over her 5'4" frame, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the station's lights. To Hye-jin, he looked like something from an action movie, but his demeanor seemed pleasant enough. Human female, Grexmore rumbled in his translator-assisted voice. I have heard interesting things about your species' physical capabilities. Perhaps you would honor me with a demonstration? Hye-jin smiled politely. She had been trained in cultural sensitivity and recognized this as probably some kind of bonding ritual. Many species had competitive traditions as ways of showing respect. What kind of demonstration did you have in mind? A simple test of strength, Grexmore explained, extending one of his massive armored arms. Your people call it arm wrestling, I believe. On my world, we often settle minor disputes or show friendship through such contests. Around them, the diplomatic reception continued. Representatives from dozens of species mingled in the grand Hall of Station Harmony, the galaxy's premier neutral meeting ground. Hye-jin noticed that several aliens had stopped their conversations to watch. Some seemed curious, others appeared concerned. Sure, Hye-jin agreed with a laugh. Though I should warn you, I'm not exactly the strongest human around. I mostly do paperwork these days. A table was quickly cleared, and the two took their positions. Grexmore's arm was easily 3 times the thickness of Hye-jin's, covered in natural armor plating that had evolved over millions of years on a high-gravity world. The Titan Coalition was known throughout the galaxy for producing some of the physically strongest beings in known space. The watching crowd grew larger. Ambassador Vexathul from the recent Earth Station Alpha meeting pushed forward, datapad in hand, clearly ready to document another entry for the Human Protocol Manual. Several other species representatives whispered among themselves, many of them pulling up their own data files on human physical capabilities. Begin when ready, announced a neutral crystalline mediator. Grexmore applied pressure immediately, confident in what should be an easy victory. His species regularly lifted objects weighing several tons. Their military was built around their natural physical superiority. But something strange happened. Hye-jin's arm didn't budge. The human woman looked slightly puzzled, as if she was waiting for the contest to actually start. Oh, are we going now? She asked. I thought you were just getting comfortable. Grexmore increased his effort, muscles straining visibly through his armor. The watching crowd fell silent. This wasn't going according to anyone's expectations. The human was supposed to be overwhelmed immediately. According to every military analysis, in the galaxy humans were classified as Category 3, minimal physical threat. Okay, my turn, Hyejin said cheerfully and applied pressure. Grexmore's arm went down so fast that the sound echoed through the reception hall. The massive warrior stared at his defeated limb in complete shock. Around them, the silence was deafening. Good match, Hyejin said, standing up and offering a handshake. You're really strong. I can tell you work out. But nobody was listening to her politeness. The alien dignitaries were staring in horror at what they had just witnessed. A small human female had just effortlessly defeated one of the galaxy's premier warriors. The implications were staggering. Within hours, emergency diplomatic sessions were being called across the galaxy. Species representatives who had been treating humans as a minor curiosity suddenly found themselves re-evaluating everything they thought they knew. The Christek Collective was the first to share their disturbing observations. We have humans working in our deep space mining operations, their representative reported to the Emergency Council. They perform maintenance tasks in radiation levels that would kill most of our species within minutes. We assumed they were using protective equipment. Further investigation reveals they often work in lethal radiation with minimal protection and seem to find it only mildly uncomfortable. The void swimmers added their own concerning data. Human explorers in our sector regularly navigate gravitational anomalies that crush our heavily reinforced vessels. They not only survive these conditions but appear to find them amusing. We have recorded instances of humans laughing while their ships are being twisted by forces that should tear them apart. But perhaps the most disturbing report came from the Hive Mind Collective. We have been monitoring human performance under various stress conditions, their shared consciousness reported. Our findings indicate that humans do not simply endure dangerous situations, they improve under them. The more life-threatening the circumstances, the more efficiently they operate. We have observed humans solving complex problems faster when facing extinction than when they are safe and comfortable. The Protocol Manual's emergency revision team worked around the clock. New warnings flooded in from across the galaxy. The Merchant Guild reported that human traders performed better negotiations when they were slightly injured. The Science Academy noted that human researchers made breakthrough discoveries more frequently when their funding was cut and their projects were threatened with cancellation. Ambassador Vex Thul found themselves rewriting entire sections of the manual. The original assumption that humans were fragile had led to a completely wrong understanding of the species. Humans weren't just surprisingly strong. They were apparently designed to thrive in conditions that would destroy other life forms. The most troubling realization was that humans seemed completely unaware of how unusual they were. Choi Hyejin had genuinely been surprised by the reaction to her easy victory over Grexmore. When questioned later, she mentioned that her elderly grandmother was much stronger and that she herself was out of shape compared to her military friends. As reports continued pouring in, the galaxy's leaders began to understand a frightening truth. They hadn't encountered humanity at their strongest. Every human they had met so far represented the peaceful, diplomatic civilian side of the species. Nobody wanted to think about what human soldiers might be capable of. Commander Kang Subin expected another boring patrol shift when her sensors picked up the distress beacon. The signal came from a Zeraphim science vessel drifting near the asteroid belt, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Zeraphim were known throughout the galaxy as brilliant researchers, logical, methodical, and absolutely obsessed with data analysis. Finding one of their ships in distress was unusual. "This is Human Patrol Vessel Incheon responding to your distress call," Subin transmitted on standard diplomatic channels. "What is the nature of your emergency?" The response was immediate and confusing. "Please maintain distance. We surrender. We offer no threat. Please do not approach. We surrender unconditionally." Subin frowned at her communication officer, Park Junho. "Are they under attack? I'm not seeing any other ships in the area." "No sign of hostiles, Commander," Junho replied, checking his screens. "Just us and them." Subin tried again. "Seraphim vessel, this is Commander Kang. We're here to help. What kind of assistance do you need?" "No assistance required," came the panicked response. "We have sealed ourselves in the core compartment. We will not emerge. Please leave the area immediately. We surrender. This was getting ridiculous. Subin had dealt with Seraphim before. They were typically calm, rational beings who spoke in precise scientific terms. This level of panic was completely out of character. I'm taking a shuttle over, Subin decided. Maybe something's wrong with their communications. The moment her shuttle approached the Seraphim vessel, the surrender broadcasts intensified. Human approaching. All crew to emergency positions. We offer complete submission. Please do not board. We have valuable research data to trade for our lives. Subin docked her shuttle and entered through the airlock. The ship was eerily quiet. Emergency lights flickered in the corridors. But there was no sign of the crew. She made her way toward the bridge, calling out reassurances. Hello? I'm Commander Kang from the Human Patrol Service. I'm here to help. Where is everyone? Her voice echoed through empty corridors. Finally, she found a communication panel and activated it. This is Commander Kang. I'm aboard your vessel. Where are you? Stay back, came a terrified voice from the speakers. We have analyzed the human behavioral protocols. We know what you are capable of. We are sealed in the core compartment and will not emerge. Subin stared at the speaker in complete bewilderment. What protocols? I'm just trying to help you. What's wrong with your ship? Nothing is wrong with our ship, the voice replied. We detected your patrol route and calculated a 94.7% probability of accidentally triggering human aggression through normal interaction. We have sealed ourselves in safety. It took Subin several minutes to understand what was happening. The Seraphim had apparently gotten hold of the Galactic Human Interaction Manual and had analyzed it with their typical scientific thoroughness. They had run statistical models, probability calculations, and risk assessments. Their conclusion was that any contact with humans was essentially suicidal. Look, I don't know what manual you're talking about, Subin said patiently, but I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm just checking on your welfare. Predatory stalking behavior confirmed, the voice shrieked. You have entered our vessel without permission. You are hunting us through our own ship. We surrender completely. Every attempt Subin made to reassure them only made things worse. When she offered to leave, they interpreted it as tactical withdrawal before assault. When she tried to explain human peaceful intentions, they heard deceptive pre-attack communication. When she simply stood still and waited, they declared it patient predator behavior. The situation became even more bizarre when Subin discovered that the Seraphim weren't alone in their terror. Her communication officer started receiving reports from across the sector. Commander, Junho called from the Incheon. I'm getting some strange messages from other ships in the area. Several vessels are requesting alternate routes to avoid human patrol zones. The reports painted a picture that was both absurd and deeply concerning. The Merchant Guild had issued new human deterrent protocols, advising traders to jettison cargo if approached by human vessels, assuming it was some form of tribute payment. The Science Collective had published a survival guide for human encounters that recommended immediate evacuation of any system where humans were detected. Even more disturbing were the military responses. The Corvan Empire had quietly repositioned their fleet to avoid human space entirely. The Nexus Federation was reportedly developing human appeasement gifts, valuable resources they could quickly offer to prevent human aggression. Subin realized that the galaxy's various species had taken the Human Interaction Manual and expanded on it with their own cultural fears and assumptions. Each species had added their own interpretations, creating an escalating cycle of terror. The Crystalline Confederacy assumed humans were silicon-based life-form hunters because of their use of computer technology. The Gas Giant Collective believed humans were atmosphere thieves because they carried breathing equipment. The Machine Intelligence Network had concluded that humans were sent to destroy artificial life because they used electronic devices so casually. Every species was projecting their own worst fears onto humanity, creating a galaxy-wide panic based on misunderstanding and incomplete information. The final straw came when Subin received a priority message from Fleet Command. Commander Kang, we're getting reports of ships fleeing entire sectors when human vessels are detected. The Galactic Trade Council is requesting that human patrols be suspended until this situation can be resolved. Subin looked around the empty Seraphim ship, listening to the continuing surrender broadcasts from the sealed core compartment. Somewhere along the way, humanity's reputation had transformed from newly discovered species to galaxy-wide threat, without anyone actually consulting any humans about it. The irony was overwhelming. Humans had spent months trying to follow protocols designed to make other species comfortable, while those same species were developing increasingly elaborate strategies to avoid human contact entirely. Junho, Subin called to her ship. Patch me through to Galactic Command. I think we need to have a serious conversation about how this whole diplomacy thing is working out. As she prepared to leave the Seraphim vessel, the surrender broadcasts continued. She wondered how long it would take to convince an entire galaxy that humans weren't the monsters they had imagined. The answer, she suspected, might be longer than anyone wanted to think about. The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 300 species gathered for the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Vexthul stood at the central podium, holding the thick datapad that had caused months of chaos across known space. Fellow beings, Vexthul began, their voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. We are here because our human interaction safety guidelines have failed spectacularly. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Seraphim delegation sat huddled together, still wearing protective gear. The Corvin Empire's representatives had positioned themselves as far from the human section as possible. Even the confident Titan Coalition warriors looked uncomfortable. Our manual was supposed to prevent diplomatic incidents, Vexthul continued. Instead, it has created a galaxy-wide crisis of fear and misunderstanding. Trade routes have been abandoned. Scientific collaborations have ended. Entire sectors are avoiding human contact entirely. In the human section, Cultural Attaché Choi Heejin sat quietly beside Commander Kang Subin and Captain Lee Minjun. They had requested permission to address the assembly, though many species representatives had initially protested having humans present at all. The manual's fundamental assumption was wrong, Vexthul announced. We treated humans as unpredictably violent predators. We created protocols to avoid triggering their aggression, but we never asked the humans themselves about their behavior. A crystalline delegate raised a glowing appendage. The data was clear. Humans display violent responses to minor stimuli. They possess disproportionate physical strength. They thrive in lethal conditions. How is this not predatory behavior? That's exactly what we need to discuss, Vexthul replied. I invite Cultural Attaché Choi Heejin to explain what we've learned. Heejin walked to the podium, and despite months of fear-mongering, many beings leaned forward with genuine curiosity. She was small compared to most of the assembled delegates, but she moved with the quiet confidence that had started all this trouble. Thank you, Ambassador Vexthul, Heejin began. I want to start by apologizing. We had no idea our behavior was frightening people. When we learned about it, we were honestly confused. She activated a holographic display showing incident reports from the original manual. Let's look at what actually happened in these situations. Ambassador Zelek approached Kim Tae-ho from behind and touched him unexpectedly. Kim's response was immediate and defensive. But notice what happened next. Kim immediately helped Zelek up, checked for injuries, and apologized repeatedly. The display showed medical footage of Kim carefully examining Zelek for damage, his face full of concern and guilt. This wasn't random violence, Hyojin explained. This was a protective reflex. Kim's body reacted to perceived danger, but his mind was horrified by what he had done to someone he considered a friend. She moved to the next incident. When the Vagonian mentioned eating intelligent creatures, every human in the room prepared for combat. But again, look at what they were actually responding to. They weren't being aggressive. They were being protective. They thought they were in the presence of a predator who might harm other sentient beings. The assembly was listening intently now. Even the nervous Seraphim had stopped their anxious chittering. The pattern is consistent across every incident, Hyojin continued. Humans don't attack randomly. We react when we perceive threats to ourselves or others we care about. Our frightening reflexes are actually defensive mechanisms. A hive. Mind representative spoke up, their collective voice resonating through the chamber. But we have observed humans performing better under stress, thriving in dangerous conditions. This suggests aggressive adaptation. You're right about the performance part, Hyejin agreed, but wrong about the reason. Humans don't seek out danger because we enjoy it. We rise to challenges because we're protecting something. When human miners work in lethal radiation, they're doing it to provide resources for their families. When human explorers laugh at gravitational anomalies, they're showing confidence to keep their crew calm. She switched to a new display showing human families, communities, and work teams. Everything humans do is centered around protecting and providing for our groups. What you've been interpreting as predatory behavior is actually pack loyalty taken to an extreme. The revelation was staggering. Commander Kang Subin stood up to add her perspective. The Zeraphim crew that locked themselves in their core compartment, they thought I was hunting them, but I was actually worried about them. When they wouldn't respond to my calls, my concern grew stronger. To them, my persistence looked like stalking behavior. To me, I was just making sure they were safe. But this creates a new problem, called out Warlord Grexmore, still nursing his wounded pride from the arm wrestling incident. If humans are so protective of their groups, how do we know when we're safe from them? Hyejin smiled. That's exactly what the new manual addresses. The old guidelines taught you how to avoid human aggression. The new ones teach you how to recognize when humans have accepted you as part of their protection circle. She displayed the new manual's cover. Understanding Human Protective Behavior, a guide to galactic integration. The key indicators are simple, Hyejin explained. When humans start sharing food with you, they're including you in their group. When they ask about your family or home, they're expanding their protective circle to include your loved ones. When they offer to help with your problems, even small ones, they're treating you as pack. The new manual was completely different from the original. Instead of warnings about human violence, it contained guides for recognizing human acceptance behaviors. It explained how humans showed affection through gentle teasing, how they demonstrated trust by sharing personal stories, and how they expressed care through practical help. The most important section, Hyejin said, highlighting the final chapter, explains what happens once humans consider you family. She read the concluding entry aloud. Once humans accept you into their protective circle, they become the most devoted allies in the galaxy. They will share their resources, defend your interests, and if necessary, fight to the death to protect you. The same reflexes that made them seem dangerous will be turned outward, making them the galaxy's most terrifyingly loyal friends. The transformation in the assembly was remarkable. The fear that had dominated the chamber was being replaced by something else. Hope, curiosity, and for some species, a desperate desire to be included in this human protective circle. 6 months. Later, the galaxy looked completely different. The old manual had been officially retired, replaced by integration guides written jointly by human and alien behavioral specialists. Former enemies were now serving aboard human vessels, not as prisoners or subjects, but as cherished crew members whose safety humans would die to protect. The final irony was that the species who had once feared human violence were now competing for human friendship, knowing that once earned human loyalty was the most valuable resource in the galaxy.